Welcome to The Explainer. I'm your chief architect for today, and we are stepping straight onto the active construction site of one of the absolute most rigorous academic builds you're ever going to undertake. Today's masterclass is the high-rise exam construction blueprint workshop. Our foundational challenge, the Cambridge AS Level Afrikaans 8679 syllabus. And more specifically, we are tackling that notoriously demanding topic area, contemporary aspects of Afrikaans-speaking countries. Now you might be wondering, why on earth are we treating an exam like a massive skyscraper construction project? Well, it's because this specific topic area appears in every single examination series. It's the bedrock, it's the ground floor. And what the principal examiner reports tell us time and time again is that students aren't failing because they lack raw materials or intelligence. No, they're failing because their structural engineering is fundamentally flawed. Surviving the intense, high-pressure stress testing of Cambridge examiners requires a rigid, repeatable architectural methodology. Listen, if you just pour a bunch of words onto a page without a proper steel framework underneath, your essay is going to literally collapse under the weight of the mark scheme. So we're going to fix that. Let's dive right into this and look at the exact blueprints required to build an unshakable, top-tier response.
Here's our master blueprint for today's workshop. We'll start off in the blueprint room, move into reading the system blueprint, have a look at the ironwork peer debate, pause for a quick mid-build inspection, and finish off with a rebar stress test.
Section 1. The blueprint room. Setting the foundation.
As the chief architect on this site, I see and evaluate two very specific types of builders every single year. First, we have Builder 1. Let's call him Alex. Alex loves to just stack heavy bricks of raw facts. It's pure knowledge, but it's incredibly dense. Then we have Builder 2. Let's call her Sam. Sam is all about installing these shiny, decorative glass panels, fancy vocabulary, but she completely forgets to cement her foundational columns first. Honestly, I have to reject both of their approaches immediately. True structural integrity in this Afrikaans AS level framework absolutely requires competence across three distinct cognitive domains. You have to think of these as your three critical load-bearing pillars. Pillar 1 is knowledge and understanding. That's your raw material, right? The concrete. Pillar 2 is analysis. That is your steel rebar, which connects the concrete into a deliberate, intentional shape. And Pillar 3 is evaluation. That's the engineering stress test that proves the building can actually withstand high wind. The sources tell us explicitly that successful candidates demonstrate high competence across all three of these domains. If you only give me knowledge, like Alex, your building is just a solid block of concrete. It has zero functional space. It's useless. But if you only give me shiny words without the deep analysis, like Sam, your beautiful glass is going to shatter at the very first gust of examiner wind. You need all three pillars, perfectly aligned, every single time.
So, the crucial point we need to establish right now before a single brick is laid is our core structural principles. The theoretical foundations of this syllabus demand systematic analysis and strictly evidence-based reasoning. Notice our absolute core rule here. Prioritize analytical depth over superficial breadth. Guys, this is the golden rule of exam architecture. Think about it. A building that spans an entire city block but is only 1 story tall, that's not a skyscraper. That's a warehouse. If you try to mention 20 different contemporary aspects of Afrikaans-speaking countries in your exam, but you don't actually drill down deeply into any of them, your building is way too wide, it's way too shallow, and it will instantly collapse under examiner scrutiny. The academic benchmarks require logical, structured reasoning. Every single sentence you write has to act as a heavy-duty rivet, locking the previous point to the next point, driving the whole structure upward toward your overall thesis. Depth is exactly what gets you to the top band scores, not a scattered, messy sprawl of disconnected facts.
Moving on to Section 2, Reading the System Blueprint, the Deconstruct, Solve, Evaluate sequence.
Okay, it's time to map out the exact sequence required to solve a complex, high-tariff past paper question. What you're seeing here is the Deconstruct, Solve, Evaluate sequence taken directly from the assessment framework. This is the exact procedural framework required for problem solving in the contemporary aspects topic area. When you sit down and look at an exam prompt, you must align your paragraph columns precisely to this 5-step grid to earn those elusive, highly valuable method marks. Method marks are awarded for the process of your construction, not just how pretty the final aesthetic looks. Let's break it down. Step 1. Identify the given information. Extract the relevant stimulus data. Step 2. Break it into logical steps. Please do not try to build the roof before the scaffolding is up. Step 3. Solve systematically. This means executing your analysis with incredibly clear notation. Step 4. Check for reasonableness. This is your internal site safety audit. Does the claim you just made actually make sense in the real-world context of an Afrikaans-speaking country today? And finally, Step 5. Make justified recommendations. This is your evaluation phase. If your essay paragraphs follow this exact vertical alignment, the examiner sees a structurally sound, methodical blueprint. They can award you those method marks step by step, even if your final conclusion has slight imperfections. Remember, the process itself is the foundation.
Now this perfectly illustrates what I call the command stress points. You absolutely must apply correct formats, use appropriate terminology, and evaluate performance. This right here is where the difference between a failing structure and a top-tier skyscraper becomes blatantly obvious. The command words in your exam prompt are your stress points. If the question asks you to evaluate and you simply describe, you have literally violated the building code. A descriptive structure instantly fails the mark scheme criteria for an evaluative prompt. There's no way around it. Let me put it this way. Describing is just pointing at the building and saying, oh, look, the walls are gray. Evaluating is calculating the load-bearing capacity of those gray walls, noting their physical limitations, and determining if they are actually the most effective choice for the environment. Practical application in this syllabus is specifically designed to develop professional skills. The examiner wants to see you evaluate performance and logically justify your structural choices. If you build a descriptive shack when the blueprint specifically called for an evaluative high-rise, the inspector will condemn the site immediately, no matter how nicely you painted those walls.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ironwork peer debate, framing the argument.
Let's transition back to the drafting board, where our two builders, Alex and Sam, are currently locked in a massive, exhaustive debate over how to construct a model response paragraph. Honestly, their argument is exactly what every single student wrestles with internally during an exam. Alex, our heavy bricklayer, points to a massive cement block of a rule straight from the principal examiner report. It reads, "Candidates consistently confuse key terminology. Always define terms before using them in extended responses." Alex slams his hand on the drafting table. He argues fiercely that they must pour down terminology definitions first. According to him, the entire first half of the paragraph must be this massive block of definitions to lock the foundation in place. He says, look, if we don't define the contemporary aspect clearly, using correct formats and strict conventions, the examiner won't even know we understand the topic. And you know what? Alex is entirely correct that the presentation of information follows strict conventions, and using appropriate terminology is completely non-negotiable. Without correct terminology, the site is just chaotic. But we have to ask ourselves, is a solid, unmoving block of definitions actually enough to hit the highest grade bands?
Well, Sam shakes her head and counters Alex immediately regarding evidence quality. She argues that if they fill the entire paragraph with a solid block of definitions, the structure has absolutely zero flexibility. It will just snap right in half under the pressure of the evaluation criteria. Sam points out that critical analysis requires creating hollow, flexible spaces in the architecture to allow for dynamic counterarguments. To evaluate evidence quality properly, the blueprint says you must identify the limitations of the data. You have to expose the assumptions made within the text. You must present alternative interpretations of these contemporary aspects, and crucially, determine their effect on the final conclusions. Sam looks at Alex and says, if your foundation is just static definitions, where is the room for the building to sway in the wind? Where is the critical analysis? Sam is arguing for that analytical depth we discussed earlier. She knows that exposing assumptions and exploring alternative interpretations is literally the secret password to unlocking the critical evaluation marks that separate the average builders from the master architects. At this point, as the chief architect, I have to step in between Alex and Sam to show them how these two seemingly opposing concepts actually unite to form the comparative analysis framework. Look at the left side. Similarities require comparative connectives and concrete evidence. This perfectly satisfies Alex's need for strict conventions and clearly defined terminology. Now look at the right side. Differences require evaluating the relative importance of each point. This perfectly satisfies Sam's need for dynamic evaluation and exposing limitations. Comparative analysis in this Afrikaans topic area requires identifying both similarities and differences. You can't just list them side by side like a grocery list. You literally have to rivet them together using comparative connectives. You support each side with concrete evidence extracted from the stimulus materials, and then, and here is the absolute masterstroke, you draw an evaluative conclusion about their relative importance. This creates a perfectly balanced, load-bearing beam. The definitions ground the structure, and the evaluation of differences provides the architectural tension that keeps the high-rise standing tall.
Section 4. Mid-build inspection. Upgrading the cement.
All right, blow the whistle. I am officially halting construction on the site. As Alex and Sam were assembling their paragraphs, they hit a totally unexpected roadblock. Their evidence beams are currently failing to latch on to the main thesis column. But before we upgrade their cement, I need to make sure your own construction line is fully reinforced. This is a mandatory site inspection. Take a second right now to secure your primary exam grid. Hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exams at the handle @AceTheExams, and make sure you turn on all notifications. Think of it as locking your hard hat securely into place before stepping onto the site. We provide weekly structural grade upgrades, rigorous blueprint templates, and live site safety audits exactly like this one. Whether you are laying down a foundational IGCSE slab or engineering a massive A-level skyscraper, this channel is your central command station. Subscribe now, lock it in, and let's get back to the drafting board to help Alex and Sam.
Okay, so why exactly did Alex and Sam's evidence beams fail to latch? It's because they completely ignored the top 3 structural failures straight from the principal examiner reports. These are the critical warnings that cause entire exam papers to crumble to dust year after year. Warning number 1. Answers on contemporary aspects of Afrikaans-speaking countries are often way too vague. Examiners absolutely despise broad generalizations. They demand specific, granular details. If your beam is vague, it's structurally weak, simple as that. Warning number 2. Students forget to check format and presentation. Remember those strict conventions we talked about? Proper headings, clear annotations, logical steps. If the presentation is a mess, the examiner literally cannot verify the safety of your structure. And warning number 3, which is perhaps the most fatal of them all. Answers are not specific to the context given. Listen, if you just memorize a generic essay about Afrikaans-speaking countries and try to force-fit it into a highly specific stimulus question on exam day, you are essentially trying to build a bridge schematic on a sight zone for a skyscraper. It will fail. You must extract the relevant data directly from the specific stimulus materials provided in that exact exam paper.
To fix their failing paragraph, I'm providing Alex and Sam with this standardized processing sequence. It's built around the Peel methodology: point, evidence, evaluation, link. We are going to rewrite their paragraph out loud, line by line, into a perfectly engineered, load-bearing block. Step 1. Identify key elements. This is our point. We state the main argument clearly, defining our terms immediately to satisfy the examiner's demand for precise terminology. We lock the concrete in. Step 2. Apply relevant principles. This is our evidence. We bring in specific, concrete evidence extracted directly from the exact context of the provided stimulus, avoiding any of those vague generalizations that ruin papers. Step 3. Execute with clear working. This is where we use our comparative connectives to rivet our evidence to our analysis. We analyze the similarities and the differences systematically. Step 4. Verify results. This is our evaluation. We actively expose the limitations and assumptions of our own evidence. We ask, does this conclusion actually hold up under stress? We let the building sway. And step 5, present in appropriate format. This is our link. We synthesize the paragraph with an evaluative, concluding sentence that determines the relative importance of the points discussed, linking perfectly back to the main thesis. By following this standardized Peel sequence, the builders have completely replaced their weak, vague connections with high-grade, load-bearing analytical arguments. The paragraph is now an unshakable fortress that will easily survive any examiner's rigorous stress testing.
Section 5. Interactive Rebar Stress Test. Site Safety Audit.
Now I'm turning away from the blueprint room and I am speaking directly to you, the viewer. It is time for a live site safety audit to test your own extraction skills and verify your structural readiness for this AS-level exam. Take a good look at the blueprint extraction matrix we have here. Imagine a 60-second visual countdown timer ticking down right now. I am challenging you to identify the single most high-yielding core metric required to secure your method marks, based on everything we've covered today. Look closely at the 3 tasks: question deconstruction, framework execution, and verification. Look at their corresponding requirements and the structural fixes. If you want to avoid the most common fatal collapse cited by the Cambridge examiners, which of these structural fixes is the absolute most critical to lock into place first? I'll give you a hint, it goes right back to examiner warning number 3. If your foundation isn't built on the exact soil provided by the examiners, the whole building comes down. The answer is the structural fix for question deconstruction. Context-specific answers derived from extracting stimulus data. If you don't do this, your clear notation and proper headings mean absolutely nothing because you are building on the completely wrong site. You must extract relevant data from the specific stimulus materials first. That is your primary structural fix. If you master that extraction matrix, your method marks are going to stack up automatically.
Which brings us to the final inspection before we hand over the keys. Ask yourself honestly as you prepare for this paper, have you defined your terminology before building your argument? And have you actually evaluated the limitations of your evidence? If you are just stacking heavy bricks of knowledge without the rebar of analysis, or if you're installing the shiny glass of fancy vocabulary without the concrete of evaluation, your exam structure remains fundamentally unsafe. It's a risk you cannot afford to take. A high-rise is only ever as strong as its analytical framework. The next time you sit down with a past paper on the contemporary aspects of Afrikaans-speaking countries,
I want you to look at the blank page not as a test, but as a construction site. Are you going to build a shallow shack that blows over? Or are you engineering a towering skyscraper? The blueprint is in your hands. Now get to work.